So, Mum, a small conversation to actually celebrate the fact that when the Lifetime Achievement Award was dreamt up by the African Philanthropy Conference, as Becky said earlier today, you were the first awardee, and there was no division, there was no discussion. Everybody really, really knew how much you deserved that award. I wanted to ask you just a few questions this evening about your journey in many ways in the philanthropic space. I really wanted to ask you first, very specifically, about FDC, the Foundation for Community Development in Mozambique, for those of you who don't know. And I'm not going to attempt the Portuguese pronunciation. But one of the things that I've most admired about FDC is the fact that it is a long lasting, really strong, Mozambican grounded community foundation. And Jerry earlier this afternoon was also talking about how creative you'd been about using things like debt swaps. But the most important part of it was, for me, the story of Mozambican ambition around Mozambican community strengthening. So could I ask you to tell us a little bit about the how and the why of FDC?
Well, thank you so much for having me this evening. And Theo has this quality of challenging him in a way where I can't say no whenever she asks me to do or to talk about certain things. We are in 1990. Mozambique had gone through a very painful process of internal conflict. So 1990, we have 2 million people who are refugees in Malawi. And Malawi is a small country, as you know. 1 million, they were between South Africa and Swaziland, and a few in Zambia. Internally, we had 5 million people who were internal displaced people. I sit there and I say, Hugh, how are we going to do something to contribute for this altogether? It would 8 million people, as I mentioned here, to have a sense of family again, and of course of community, which is our strength as Africans. We always live in community. But for these millions, it had been disrupted for a long time. Then there was a case where, whenever there is a conflict, you are flooded with the hundreds, literally hundreds of organizations, international organizations, which come and they say, we are here to help. So I said to myself, where are Mozambicans to help themselves? How do we start really with that dimension to claim that no, it's us Mozambicans who have been deeply wounded by this conflict. It is us who have to take responsibility and to be in charge of reconstructing our own communities. So at the beginning, I said, well, let's establish an NGO. I mean, a foundation is also an NGO, but and I'm speaking to some colleagues and friends, and I said to them, let's establish a foundation. They said, foundation? I said, yes. Why foundation? Because a foundation is forced to have an endowment. And a foundation has the message, the long message of saying it's for sustainability. While when you have an organization with the NGO, you have become mostly a vehicle. You go and get funding, and you channel funding to communities. Most of NGOs this is what was happening. So I said, no, that's not good enough. Let's really challenge ourselves to establish a foundation. So why FDC? It was an attempt to say we need to reclaim the Mozambican identity because we were flooded by these old NGOs which were coming from everywhere. So there was no face and voice of Mozambicans. We said, no, we are going to be part of reclaiming our identity. Second, we needed to reclaim that we have our own ways of doing things when we think of community. And this is what is going to be the basis of any support. If someone can give support, it had to listen to us and the way we do our own things. It was also an issue of self-esteem, really. We had been very, very wounded and we wanted to regain our self-esteem. But the question, the reason I'm mentioning this is that, one, to reclaim identity in 1990, but now we are talking of identity as African in 2024. And that's why I'm stressing this, because it's still a current issue for African philanthropy. And then we started saying, but we don't have the money. And we organized, we're 19 of us. The first crop, we're 19 of us. And so we decided we are going to put first our own money. Of course, it was going to be too small. But each one of us, according to his or her capabilities, we put the seed money for the endowment to give us the dignity, of going and asking to other people to say, we need you to contribute. First, Mozambicans. But even for Mozambicans, we would have to tell them, we have put money. So can you please? And of course, friends, colleagues, and you name it, we asked everybody to contribute. Then there was also the issue of, I'll say it clearly, of credibility. For people to feel free to put resources in our hands, we had to have a face and a history of being known as credible people. Put this together. For me, it was identity, self-esteem, our own dignity, our own way of doing things, but also to say, you put your mouth, you put your resources where your mouth is. Start putting the money first. And then to go to Mozambicans and ask them. So at that time, as, poor we have come from this conflict, for us to gather from Mozambican hands $1 million, it was a huge, success. So we got the first million from ourselves. Now, when I'll go to Jerry. What he was not, he disclosed what I was not thinking of talking about now. But we knew that we needed resources much more than that. One of my colleagues and friends had been a former minister of finance. So he was the mastermind of the debt swap. It was not a big amount of money, but he knew that there were some countries which Mozambique was owing. It was $10 million. Can you imagine? So small. So we went to some of our colleagues who we had been in government, but they were still powerful. We said to them, $10 million for a government, it's nothing. It's really peanuts. But $10 million for an organization, a Mozambican organization, oh my goodness, this is money. So you as government, give us the backing. We will go and speak to all these creditors, but give us the backing that you allow us to negotiate. So we were the one to negotiate. Allow us to negotiate the government it needed only to say no objection. So that's how we did. We went, and I want to be short. What I'm trying to say with it, how we started, I'll come back to this. One, for us, you identify a problem, which is a challenge more than a problem, a challenge. And then you have to identify where will come the strength and the capacity to face this huge challenge. And once you have identified this, you say, okay, now I have the people to work with. I have clarity on the cause I want to be fighting for. Now, I can get the money. Money will come if I am able then to convince others. So I want to shorten this saying, we, many times, we underestimate our capacity of just thinking ahead. I have to say that this foundation was the very first in Mozambique. There hadn't been any foundation, let alone a community, a foundation for community development. And I want you to fix this. It was very clear for us, it was not any kind of foundation for community development. And then at the same time, we said, you know, it is important that it is something which is going to last. And that's what you, my children, now you talk of sustainability. We didn't call it sustainability at that time, but we were able to identify that it has to be a Mozambican institution to respond to Mozambican challenge, being Mozambicans to take the first responsibility and then to mobilize others to come and help us. But they are going to support you to walk on your own feet. And that's where to stay there forever. And guess what? Guess what, really? As we speak here, oh, I know. FDC, oh yeah, will survive me. It will survive much, much, much longer than my lifetime. That's it.
Thank you. And I want to just link up. You've said to me before, on other occasions, that sometimes the word philanthropy actually makes you feel uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that when we talk about African philanthropy, how are we really thinking about it? So I wanted to ask you the link between the FDC story and your understanding of African giving, African being, African philanthropy.
Well, the element of African, you know, and African giving, I think just in this example, it says what I mean. But you are asking why I have a certain discomfort that we decided. I'm like this. Forgive me for being so blatant, but we had to go and borrow the word philanthropy. I know it came from Greeks. It has come it was said this morning, but the point is that in ordinary Africans, we as people, we don't call it philanthropy. If you go to our communities and you say philanthropy, they will not hear you. They won't understand who you are. But if you say African giving, African sharing, oh, everybody will understand. So this is what she's disclosing. I was not trying to justify this, but my problem is philanthropy for us as African, it has always to be, and I wish you'll continue in this, it's about giving, it's about sharing, but sharing in equality. In our case, when a neighbor or community or a church, when we give, we don't even count how much each one of us have given. We give and we will put it in what? In a bowl, a bowl,
Bowl.
yeah. We put it in there. And the moment it's in the bowl, it belongs to all of us. And so you don't personalize. You see what I mean? We in Africa, we don't personalize our giving. And this is it's a bit of discomfort for me. The second thing is those who give and those who are going to receive, they are equal. There's no hierarchy between the ones who have put in the bowl, huh?
Basket.
In the basket, those who have put in the basket, and those who have received. We are all equal. So you talk now, you say, well, this is equity. For me, it's not even equity, it's equality. It's because the relationship between those who put in the basket and those who will receive from the basket, they are so equal that you don't establish this relationship of those who are giving and those who are receiving. In the language of philanthropy, there's even what they call them recipients. Hey, it is an offense from me. You see what I'm trying to say? It is an offense. When I get some funding and they call me recipient, and that's the problem. So for you, my children, as Africans, really you have to develop what you adopted the word of philanthropy, but you develop giving, sharing in equality, where there is no hierarchy between those who give and those who receive. Okay? You hear me? So that's one, the FDC, which you are bringing the example of FDC. If I had not told you, you wouldn't know who were the first, to give. We disappeared. We don't have to claim. And this is, how long do we have as time?
We've got
well,
time.
And so, can I get at this, the distinctive way I would like Africans to remain in this space of giving and sharing. Please keep these two words together. It's giving and it's sharing. When you share, you don't give what you don't need. You give what is essential to you, but you are sharing because you understand the basic principle of saying, I am because you are. And for me to be, you have to, the two of us, we have to have the same. You understand what I'm trying to say? So this issue of equality, giving, receiving, sharing, but in equality, it's a fundamental, in my view, of what African giving has to be now and forever. And this means, for me, the distinctive way of, I'm using your words, of philanthropy, which now you have to develop. It's those principles. Never go away of them. I'll say why. When Mr. Ford or Mr. I don't know, those who created these big foundations, I have a lot of respect for them. In fact, they have been supporting us as well. But at the beginning, it was, they had money. And they took money, they created an institution to develop the giving. And then they decided which groups they wanted to serve. Isn't it? Mm-hmm. So, the difference with us, Africans, and I urge you to remain like that. We don't start with money. No. Our first, starting is to identify a challenge. You feel it as your obligation to do something about that challenge. You mobilize yourself and those who are around you and you say, how do we deal with this together? And then you give your time. It was mentioned this morning. It's a time, it's a knowledge, it's a skills, whatever. That's the starting point for us. We start from here. And then money come last, I have to tell you. Money come last. And the difference between the origin of the other kind of philanthropies, I'm not saying it's bad. I'm saying it's different. It's not African. That's what I'm saying. So they start with money, the structure to give the money, and they choose the cause. While we, yes, we feel the challenge, we opt to be responsible to face the challenge, we mobilize, we give time, skills, all these other things, and then we say, what about money? And it's important for you to keep this in mind, because the tyranny of money can deviate you from that very, very important characteristic of being the one who give, but they give in equality. Money can deviate you from them, from that. So I want to say this using my white hair, because I know I can say it with no shivering, you know. And I know also that those children of mine who are chairing and they're doing very good work with these other forms of philanthropy, you all together, including those who are friends, etc., all of us together, this is what we have to come together to do the African philanthropy. And what I'm saying is, we have a unique opportunity to redefine, that's what I want to say, redefine what is called global philanthropy. And coming from us with this very humane way of looking at, why do I start this thing? I have the face of the people, and I want those people to have the best for them. They will continue to strengthen their dignity. And because of that, then we establish institutions. So we have to help. We have to help our friends from the north to say, yes, money is important. But when it comes to Africa, people first. And their differences. I was saying to someone today, sometimes we believe, oh, because they're Africans. Yes, we are all Africans. But African in West Africa and Southern Africa and East Africa and North Africa, etc., etc., no one has the right, even us who are born in this continent, to dare to think that you'll have an African program, a Pan-African program, while you haven't done the work of working with each one of the sub-regions to understand the pulse, the pace, the rhythm in which they work. Then if you have experienced all of this, then you will say, yeah, I'm a Pan-African. I want to apologize. Gressa Machel Trust is working to become Pan-African. It's not yet. Precisely because we haven't gone into all the sub-regions to get that pulse and to get the pace. We work with groups, but we don't know enough. And our right to say is an Pan-African institution is not only to be present in those sub-regions, it's to understand the dynamics and to work in those dynamics. I spoke too much, and you can tell me to sit down.
You didn't speak too much. What I want to say, every time Mama Machel speaks, I learn so much. And this morning, when the poet was doing his poem, which I loved, until he got to the bit where he named the philanthropists, and it was a long list of rich men. And I thought, I left it thinking, Adoye, my sisters who are doing the African Women in Philanthropy, we have to change that. But then I thought, actually, do we want more women's names there, or do we want us to understand that in every village, every town, every nation on our continent, we have philanthropists, we have givers, and we don't need those names. And this is what I learned
even
from you.
Those names which happen, all of them which were mentioned at least, all of them, they are my brothers or they are my children. Those names, they should be the first with us to be educated in terms of how they do philanthropy from Africans to Africans, right? While, yes, they belong to the big club of philanthropists as global philanthropists, that's fine. They represent the face of Africa there. But the way it has to be done here, it has to be from Africans to Africans the African way. That is how we have to groom ourselves together, to groom ourselves to become really proud of saying we are a community of philanthropists.
Thank you.
We can go.
We can go. There's nothing more to say. Thank you so much, Mum.
Madam, I'm going to ask you, if I may, just to maybe take a seat for 2 more minutes. Just a seat for 2 more minutes. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we can warm up the round of applause a little bit more. Thank you very much. Fantastic. Thank you, Madam. I have a small task, Mama, a very small task. Another mama of mine is in the audience. Her name is Sarah Mukasa. She is, let's give her a big round of applause. It comes up. She is the chair of the awards committee. She has a few words that she'd like to share with you, Mama. And I believe she might even call on a few people to assist her. Madam Sir.
Thank you so much, Nozi. And thank you so much, Mama Gracia. I just want to say, I think on this day, Pan-African Women's Day, 63rd Pan-African Women's Day, I'd really like to acknowledge you and to thank you. I remember as we were trying to get the ratification of the Maputo Protocol, the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, on the rights of women in Africa. And here we were, we'd had a monumental battle. It had taken almost 20 years to get that protocol ratified. And what was holding everybody back, all the governments? Polygamy, child marriage, property rights. And there we were struggling to try and get this. And you hosted us in Maputo. I will never forget it, when it was not at all, you know, the thing to do for women in leadership to align themselves with feminist causes. You came and sat with us through it was 4 days of strategizing. You hosted us, you nurtured us through that process, you emboldened us and said, you know, the fight continues and you must do this. And we ratified it in 2005. Thank you so much. Thank you. And so, before we hand over the award, I would like to call upon the co-conveners of the African Philanthropy Conference to come forward as we hand over the award. May I have CAPSI, Trust Africa, African Philanthropy Network, and all the other co-conveners. You all know yourselves. Please hurry forward. We're keeping Mama standing on the podium, and this is not... please come forward. African Philanthropy Network, African Philanthropy Forum. Trust Africa. Yes, Trust Africa is here. Mm-hmm. Trust Africa is here. Okay. Are we all here? Are we all here? Okay. Thank you. I'm going to disrupt the standing arrangements anyway, so. Mama Grasha, we are so proud of all that you have done for the continent and all that you keep doing for the continent. We'd like to hand you, with humility and deep appreciation, the 2021 Africa Philanthropy Life Achievement Award. Thank you.
I've been playing in the rain, Jabolani. I've been holding hands with you, Jabolani. Jabolani. The people sing and dance, Jabolani. There's always just a chance, Jabolani. For you to find a man, Jabolani.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
I have to say a few words.
Just a few words, Mama.
There we go. Okay. So can you please help me? A lifetime award. It's a very heavy one. Very heavy. Because it comes to mind all literally thousands and thousands of people who have been working together ever since I left the government and I embraced this space as a space of my contribution. Some of the people we started together, they are no more. And some of them, they are still around, but perhaps without the privilege of being in front of you and say the words I'm saying now. So please see this face and listen to this voice as representing thousands of faces and thousands of voices who have made their responsibility simply to make a contribution. That's all we did, is to make a contribution. We learned also in this journey that, yeah, it is important to stop sometimes and look back and celebrate. But I want to be saying the celebration is simply a moment of infusing in ourselves much more self-confidence that yes, we have done it and we can do more. It is a moment in which we have to look at the challenges we still face and say, yeah, there is something to celebrate, but the challenges are much bigger than what we have achieved so far. So I accepted this award on behalf of those thousands. And literally, I'm seeing the faces of some. I accepted this also as a kind of passing the testimony to you, to all of you. And I'll repeat a few things. Africans and people of African descent all over the world, it doesn't matter in which continent they are not yet being treated as full, absolutely full human beings. And as we celebrate what we achieve here, I want you to take from now on another element of the work you are doing is to claim our humanness as Africans, wherever we are. I want also, as I pass this testimony to you, I have said it and I'll repeat, please be proud of who we are. Don't rush to imitate other people. Start by affirming yourself. Start by recognizing your own identity. Honor your identity. And then you'll say, me as African, this is who I am, and this is what I have to offer to human family. So take time to say what exactly this wonderful gathering, which is here representing thousands and thousands of those who are not here, what do we together as Africans, we have to offer to human family as a contribution? One, we want to be more and more seen and treated as human, because it will make all the others also more human. Thank you so much for this. And I will cherish it. And I know where I'm going to leave it. With those institutions which have made me. Those institutions who have made me will be the custodians of this award. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mama Gracia Machel, ladies and gentlemen. The first ever recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award.